So picture this. You are sitting on the starting grid in Gran Turismo 7.
Oh, the tension right before the green light. I love it.
The countdown is flashing on your screen. Your hands are like gripped super tight around the steering wheel, and you are about to launch a naturally aspirated mid-engine Italian masterpiece into, well, one of the most treacherous, claustrophobic, fictional circuits in sim racing history.
It really is the ultimate digital stress test.
Yeah.
I mean, you're taking a car that totally redefined real-world supercar physics, and you're just throwing it onto a track that is literally designed to punish any mistake.
Exactly. And that brings us to the mission for this deep dive. Today, we are going to dissect exactly what it takes for you to master the Ferrari 458 Italia 09 on the sweeping, wholly undulating tarmac of Deep Forest Raceway.
Yeah, the 458 Deep Forest, it's a pairing that honestly forces you to unlearn all your lazy driving habits. It's brutal, but so rewarding.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to get straight into the machine itself. Because the 458, I mean, it isn't just another car in the Ferrari lineage. It feels like this massive pivot point in automotive history.
Oh, absolutely. It's a landmark.
So for those of you who might be, scrolling through your GT7 garage right now trying to decide what to spend your hard-earned credits on, can you break down the basic architecture? Like, what are we actually strapped into?
Yeah, so the absolute foundation of the 458 Italia is its MR layout, right? So that's mid-engine rear-wheel drive. You basically have this massive engine block sitting right behind your shoulder blades. And every ounce of that power is being sent exclusively to the rear tires. And, well, that engine is really the defining characteristic of the whole experience.
Because it's a 4.5-liter naturally aspirated V8.
Right, exactly. Naturally aspirated is the key word there.
Which, just to be clear, naturally aspirated means there's no forced induction. Like, there are no turbochargers spooling up, there are no superchargers whining.
Right, no artificial boost.
It's just relying entirely on normal atmospheric pressure to suck air into the cylinders.
Which, that fundamentally changes how the power is delivered to your rear wheels when you're playing the game. Because, like, when you press the throttle on a turbocharged car, there's always that tiny micro delay.
Oh, turbo lag.
Exactly, turbo lag. You wait a split second before the power really hits. But with the 458's naturally aspirated V8, the throttle response is basically telepathic. It's instantaneous.
That sounds intense for a beginner.
It is. It pushes out 570 CV, which is roughly 562 brake horsepower, and it does that at an astonishing 9,000 RPM.
Wow, 9,000.
Yeah. And it has this flat plane crankshaft, which allows it to rev much faster and higher than a normal V8. So instead of that classic low rumbling muscle car sound, you get this signature high-pitched, shrieking exhaust note.
9,000 RPM, that is straight up motorcycle territory.
Totally.
Pushing a car engine that high has to require some insane internal engineering just to keep it from, tearing itself apart.
All the tolerances are incredibly tight.
And I saw that Ferrari produced this car between 2009 and 2015, selling over 13,300 units globally, which is a massive commercial success for an exotic car.
A huge hit for them, yeah.
But I've heard some purists argue that the 458 was a massive departure from the car that came before it, the F430. Was this just like a facelift, or was it a complete overhaul?
No, this was a complete clean sheet design. They basically threw out the old blueprints.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Ferrari wanted to take Formula One technology and integrate it into a street legal car in a way they literally had never done before. So they built the chassis out of these advanced aluminum alloys.
Oh, supplied by Alcoa, right. I read that in the source notes.
Spot on, using actual aerospace manufacturing techniques.
Yeah.
And the goal there was twofold. They wanted to drastically increase the structural rigidity of the chassis so the suspension could, do its job better. But they also needed to drop the overall weight of the car.
Okay, wait. Dropping weight while pushing nearly 600 horsepower exclusively to the rear wheels. That sounds like a recipe for absolute disaster.
It definitely can be if you aren't careful.
Right, because if I'm a beginner firing up GT7, a featherweight car with that much instantaneous power sounds like I'm going to spend more time spinning into the grass than actually driving on the tarmac. How did they engineer it to stay on the road?
That is where the aerodynamic engineering comes in, and it's brilliant because it's so incredibly subtle. Like, look the front nose of the 458 in the game.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty smooth.
Exactly. There are no massive, obnoxious racing wings glued to the hood. Instead, Ferrari developed these hidden components called aeroelastic winglets, and they sit right inside the front air intakes.
Aeroelastic winglets, I saw this in the notes and it honestly blew my mind because aeroelasticity sounds like an aviation term. Is it essentially like an airplane wing working in reverse?
Basically, yeah.
Like it catches the air and pushes the car down instead of lifting it up?
It's very similar in principle, but the execution is purely mechanical genius. See, in a lot of modern supercars, active aerodynamics usually involve these heavy electric motors or hydraulics that physically tilt the wing up or down based on how fast you're going.
Right, like you see the spoiler pop up in your rearview mirror.
Exactly. But Ferrari didn't want that extra weight sitting in the nose of the car. So they made these winglets out of a specific composite material that is designed to physically bend and deform under aerodynamic load.
That is wild.
So when you are, say, navigating a slow hairpin corner, the winglets stay perfectly flat. That directs the maximum amount of air right into the radiators to cool down that screaming V8. But when you hit a massive straightaway at like 150 miles per hour, the sheer physical pressure of the wind forces those winglets to bend downward.
So they just naturally flex.
Exactly. And bending down physically shrinks the intake opening, which reduces drag, while simultaneously acting as a spoiler to push the front tires harder into the pavement.
That is insane. The car is literally shape-shifting under the pressure of its own speed.
It's a completely passive weight-saving solution. It's beautiful.
I mean, that kind of engineering is just incredible.
And it proved to be so effective that this exact base chassis became the bedrock for Ferrari's entire motorsport division for years. I mean, the 458 GT2 and GT3 race cars were spawned directly from this architecture.
Oh, wow. So they took that street car DNA straight to the track.
They took that aeroelastic street car and turned it into an absolute endurance monster. It dominated global GT championships and eventually won the GTE class at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So when you drive the 458 and GT7, you have to remember the game's physics engine is calculating your grip based on that actual Le Mans winning DNA.
That adds so much weight to the virtual experience. But, you know, here's where it gets really interesting. Moving away from the track for just a second. This car also made a massive cultural footprint.
Oh, Hollywood, right?
Yeah. If you are a fan of massive robot action movies, you have definitely seen this car on screen. A Rosso Corsa Red 458 was featured in Transformers. Dark of the Moon is the Autobot named Dino.
Oh man, complete with those holographic wire whips and that incredibly thick Italian accent.
Yeah, the accent was definitely a choice, but the name Dino is actually this deeply respectful nod from the filmmakers. It's a tribute to Enzo Ferrari's late son, Alfredo Dino Ferrari, who tragically passed away at a really young age.
That's actually a really beautiful touch for a blockbuster action.
It is. Integrating a piece of Ferrari's heart into a movie like that is just a great piece of trivia.
Yeah.
However, the early days of the 458 weren't entirely glorious. The source notes highlight a pretty terrifying production flaw.
Yes. The infamous spontaneous combustion issue.
Yes. Early production models were literally catching fire on the side of the road.
Just bursting into flames.
Ferrari had to issue this massive global recall. And the wildest part is, the culprit wasn't some complex engine mapping error or a fuel leak. It was glue.
Literally just adhesive.
Right. To save weight, Ferrari used a specific adhesive to attach the heat shielding inside the rear wheel arches instead of using heavy mechanical fasteners.
Which sounds smart on paper until you factor in the heat.
Exactly. They completely underestimated just how much radiant heat a 4.5-liter V8 generates when it's screaming at 9,000 RPM. The exhaust system would get so incredibly hot that it would ignite the adhesive and the rear fenders would just catch fire. It's crazy. They had to recall all the cars and replace the glue with traditional metal rivets.
You know, that perfectly illustrates the paradox of supercar engineering. You are pushing the absolute ragged edge of physics just to shave off a few ounces of weight. And sometimes, you know, you push too far and physics pushes back hard.
Physics definitely won that battle.
Right. But that relentless pursuit of performance is exactly what defines its driving dynamics in the game. The transmission is another area where they really push the envelope. See, the 458 was the first mid-engine V8 Ferrari to to completely abandon the old single-clutch automated manual and move to a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission, or DCT.
Which was huge because those older single clutch systems, like the F1 transmission and the F430, they were notorious for being really violent.
Well, they would kick you in the back.
Yeah, you'd pull the paddle shifter, the car would cut the power, all these mechanical components would slam together with this massive thunk, and then the power would just abruptly hit again. It would actually jerk your head back.
And more importantly for us on the track, that mechanical thunk would completely unsettle the car's suspension. Like if you shifted gears in the middle of a tight corner in an F430, that violent jolt could easily break the rear tires loose and spin you out.
Right, which you definitely don't want.
No. So the 458's dual clutch transmission totally eliminated that. Basically, one clutch operates the even gears and the other operates the odd gears. So when you're accelerating in third gear, fourth gear is already preloaded and just waiting.
So there's no delay at all.
None. When you pull the paddle, it swaps between them in literally milliseconds. The power delivery is entirely seamless. So the chassis remains perfectly stable, which is absolutely vital because Ferrari paired this smooth transmission with an unbelievably fast steering ratio.
I can vouch for that. I've driven it in the game, and calling it fast is honestly an understatement. The steering is hyper-reactive. Like you barely input a few degrees of rotation on your controller or your racing wheel, and the nose of the car just darts toward the apex.
It requires an incredibly steady hand. Because you have this hyper-reactive steering rack paired with that mid-engine layout, you absolutely have to become a master of weight transfer, or the car is going to punish you with snap oversteer.
Okay, wait. Let's pause for a second. I know we throw these terms around in sim racing lobbies all the time, but for me and for anyone listening who is just picking up the steering wheel and trying to figure out why their virtual Ferrari is suddenly facing backward into a guardrail, what exactly do weight transfer and snap oversteer actually mean?
Okay, yeah, let's break it down. It really all comes down to understanding where the heavy parts of the car are located and how your momentum affects them. So in the 458, the absolute heaviest component is that V8 engine, and it's sitting right behind you. When you are accelerating hard down a straightaway, your momentum pushes the weight of the car backward. It squats down on the rear tires, which gives them massive grip. But when you slam on those carbon ceramic brakes for a corner, all of that physical mass is violently hurled forward.
Oh, I see.
The front suspension compresses, shoving the front tires hard into the pavement. That shifting of mass from the rear of the car to the front, that is weight transfer.
Okay, so under heavy braking, your front tires have all the grip in the world, but your rear tires, which are trying to manage the weight of that huge engine, suddenly become incredibly light and floaty.
Precisely. And if you turn that hyper-reactive steering wheel sharply while those rear tires are unweighted and floating, they lose their physical grip on the asphalt. The massive weight of the engine behind you basically acts like a pendulum, and its forward momentum swings the back of the car outward.
And that's the oversteer.
Exactly. That is oversteer. And when it happens so rapidly and so violently that it completely snaps past your ability to countersteer and catch it, that is snap oversteer.
At that point, you're just a passenger.
You're just waiting to hit the wall, yeah.
Which means you really cannot just drive this car on autopilot. You have to consciously manage where the weight of the car is sitting at every single millisecond of the lap.
Every single input matters.
And to truly put that skill to the test, you need a circuit that actively tries to throw the car off balance. Which naturally brings us to our proving ground for today. Deep Forest Raceway.
Man, Deep Forest is practically royalty within the Gran Turismo ecosystem.
It really is.
It's a completely fictional circuit, supposedly nestled somewhere deep in the Swiss Alps. But honestly, it holds just as much weight in the sim racing community as real-world tracks like Spa or Monza.
Yeah, I mean, it has been around since the very first Gran Turismo game way back in 1997, but it was noticeably absent from the previous entry, GT Sport, which caused a massive uproar among longtime fans.
People were not happy.
No. So the developers finally brought it back for GT7. And they didn't just up-res the old PS1 textures either, they completely overhauled the layout. They expanded it to 4.253 kilometers and totally redesigned key sectors to accommodate the crazy speeds of modern GT3 and LMP cars.
And the visual identity is just striking. You are racing through this dense, towering forest that's carved straight into these sheer rock faces. It creates a really claustrophobic atmosphere, but honestly, the layout itself is what makes it a total monster.
It's intimidating.
You have this highly technical, undulating infield section where the track is constantly rising and falling, and that's combined with two blistering fast straights. The absolute key to surviving that infield is understanding exactly how to attack the clipping.
Okay, let's clarify that term too for the listener. What exactly is a clipping point in the context of Deep Forest geometry? Because we aren't just talking about, clipping the edge of the grass, right?
Right. So a clipping point is essentially the geometric apex of the corner. It's the absolute innermost point of the curve where your inside tire should brush the rumble strip. But on Deep Forest, it's tricky because the infield is this sequence of linked, flowing corners, so traditional geometric apex doesn't always work.
Because it throws you offline for the next turn.
Exactly. You often have to utilize what's called a late apex or a late clipping point. So you purposefully sacrifice a little bit of your speed on the entry of the corner, clipping the curb late, so that the car is positioned perfectly straight for the exit.
Oh, so you can immediately get on the power for the next turn.
Exactly, which leads directly into the next turn. If you miss your clipping point by even a few inches on Deep Forest, you completely compromise your driving lane for the next 3 corners.
It sounds like high-speed chess. Like you were constantly having to think 2 moves ahead. So knowing all that, where are the specific spots on this 4.2-kilometer track that are going to absolutely ruin a driver's lap? Like where does the 458 struggle the most?
Oh, Sector 2. Sector 2 is where dreams go to die.
Oh, no.
Specifically, there is this downhill right-hander immediately after you exit a short tunnel. You're carrying a ton of speed out of the dark, and right as you hit the sunlight, the track literally drops away underneath you.
That sounds like a nightmare for a transfer.
It is. Because of that sudden elevation drop, the entire car becomes super light. The suspension completely unloads. If you have any steering angle applied when the car crests that hill, the rear end of the 458 will instantly try to overtake the front.
Wow.
You have to maintain your momentum while using every single inch of the track's width just to keep the steering angle as shallow as physically possible.
So it's the ultimate test of that lift-off oversteer we talked about earlier. Like, if you panic because the track drops and you suddenly lift your foot off the throttle at the crest of that hill,
The weight transfers forward, the rear tires lose their load.
and you are spinning directly into the rock wall.
100%. And the other major danger zone is actually the entirely new addition to GT7. At the end of the massive back straight, the old sweeping left-hander from the classic games has been replaced by this brutal first gear hairpin.
Oh, I've crashed there so many times.
Everyone has. You are carrying unimaginable speed down that straight, literally maxing out the 458's 7th gear. And then you have to find this tiny braking marker to perform a violently sharp U-turn. And the braking zone is slightly downhill, which makes it incredibly easy to lock up front tires and just slide straight into the barrier.
I will say, though, I do love that if you do end up slamming into that barrier, the developers at least gave you something nice to look at.
Oh, the Easter egg.
Yes. There is a fantastic Easter egg hidden in the scenery of Deep Forest. If you pause the game and use the photo mode to look really closely at the sheer rock cliffs high above the track, you can actually spot an alpine ibex.
Which is so random, but so cool.
Right. It's a species of wild mountain goat with these massive sweeping horns, and it's just standing there on the precipice, calmly looking down at the track.
It's a brilliant touch. It adds this really cool layer of serene natural life to a digital environment that is otherwise totally defined by burning rubber and screaming engines.
Totally. So what's fascinating here is we now understand the viciously quick, hyper-reactive nature of the Ferrari 458. And we understand the undulating, punishing geometry of Deep Forest Raceway. When you actually load into the game and marry these two together, what is the resulting dynamic for the player?
Honestly, it is a synergy built on extreme tension. The track demands a car that can change direction instantly to navigate those linked sweeping corners, and the 458's MR layout and fast steering rack deliver that perfectly. The car actively wants to dive into the turns.
Right.
But the tension comes from the elevation changes. When you throw a mid-engine car with 570 horsepower over bumpy, aggressive crests and dips, the rear suspension is constantly fighting just to keep the tires in contact with the road.
I can just imagine the traction control light on your dashboard is going to be flickering constantly.
Oh, non-stop. If you treat the throttle pedal like an on-off switch, like you might in an arcade racer, the 458 will put you in a wall, period. You have to roll under the throttle with incredible delicacy. You are balancing the raw mechanical grip of the car on a nice edge through that entire technical sector.
And the sensory feedback is what makes it so addicting, you know? I just picture taking the car out in the classic Rosso Corsa, that iconic Ferrari racing red. The lighting engine in Gran Turismo 7 is bouncing the reflections of those dark, moody Swiss pines right across the curved aluminum fenders of the car. The visual contrast between this sterile, high-tech machine and the organic ancient forest is just striking.
And the audio design completes the illusion perfectly. The absolute climax of a hot lap on this combo happens right in the final sector. You dive into the long tunnel leading to the back straight. You let that naturally aspirated V8 drain all the way up to 9,000 RPM.
Just screaming.
Exactly. The high-pitched shriek of that flat plane crank echoes violently off the concrete walls of the tunnel. You explode out into the daylight, tear down the straightaway, hitting terminal velocity, and then you just slam on the brakes for that new hairpin.
And in the replay mode, you can literally watch the carbon ceramic brake rotors glow this fiery orange from the sheer kinetic friction of trying to stop the car.
It is a brilliant collision of physics and art.
It really is. So looking at the big picture, what does this all mean? Like, why does mastering this specific combination actually matter? Because it isn't just about grinding for digital currency to buy more cars, is it?
No, not at all. It is a foundational rite of passage for understanding vehicle dynamics. If you want to graduate from driving all-wheel drive cars that, forgive your mistakes, and you want to truly understand how to manipulate a mid-engine chassis using weight transfer and delicate throttle modulation, this is the masterclass.
It's the ultimate teacher.
Exactly. The 458 on Deep Forest exposes every single flaw in your driving technique.
Yeah.
If you could set a blisteringly fast, clean lap here, you basically have the foundational skills to be fast in almost any car in the game.
It strips away the illusion of just playing a video game and turns it into an actual physics simulator.
It does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it forces us to acknowledge where the automotive industry is today. The 458 Italia represents the absolute zenith of Ferrari's naturally aspirated mid-engine V8 era.
The end of a very specific era.
Right. Everything that came after it, starting with the 488, moved to turbochargers for efficiency. And today, they're utilizing complex hybrid systems just to meet emissions regulations. That pure, uninterrupted 9,000 RPM mechanical scream is essentially a ghost. It doesn't exist in new cars anymore.
Which opens up a really fascinating, almost philosophical question about what Gran Turismo actually is. We talk about it as a game or an esport, but is it actually serving as an interactive archive? Because you listening right now, you aren't just looking at the 458 in a digital museum or just reading a little plaque about its horsepower.
Or driving.
You are actively pushing its engineering limits. You're experiencing the terrifying snap oversteer and feeling that instant throttle response that modern cars have basically engineered away. Does the perfection of this digital simulation actually make us appreciate the raw, dangerous flaws of these historic cars more than if we just saw them parked silently at a car show?
I think so. It turns history into a visceral living experience. You aren't just remembering the 458, you are physically surviving it.
Surviving it. That is the exact mindset you need before you hit the track.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. For everyone listening, go boot up the console, strap into the bucket seat, and let that V8 scream through the Swiss Alps.
Respect the weight transfer. Exactly. Respect the weight transfer, find your clipping points, and whatever you do, try not to hit the wall hard enough to scare the outcast effects. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.